we've got part 2, which is the story of humanity, basically.
Kind of.
Because up before this moment, there was lots of monsters, there was lots of magical creatures like nymphs and stuff. There were no humans. And, like, there wasn't a ton of nymphs. I think that's why it makes sense that he noticed she wasn't even there.
Right. Right.
Like,
it would be a small enough wedding party that he'd be like, where's that one bitch down by the river? Where's she at? Where's the one that lived? Hermes. Where? You know, like, you'd know.
Yeah. Like,
You'd get to the reception, you'd walk in, and you'd be like, there should be one more set of hands clapping. Hang on a minute. Now, to get to the creation of man, we get to Prometheus.
Yeah, he was one of the gods and the Titans and the Titanomachy that sided with the gods.
That's right, and that's because Prometheus. This is something interesting. I always just assumed, that Prometheus meant forethought, and Epimetheus meant afterthought. Apparently, that's still sort of a subject of debate. Now, I think it makes sense, because you think of a prologue comes before the story and an epilogue comes after. So I think pro and epi, like, that's before and after. That seems pretty obvious.
The way Fry talks about it, he means foresight, and he means, Prometheus means foresight, and his brother means hindsight.
Right. And so I think whether it's etymologically correct, like if that's what it actually means, that's what they metaphorically mean. So it doesn't really matter. But the point is, Prometheus was foresight or forethought, and he could tell before the war ever started, you guys are going to win. And so he's like, Epimetheus, we're going to be on their team. And Epimetheus is like, fine.
That's okay.
But yeah, they're Titans. They are cousins of Zeus. They're actually the brothers of Atlas.
Yeah. The way I look at it is Prometheus is the kind of guy that can look at a story. Look at what's going on and come up with the best, like, possible action to do in this moment with the information that he has.
Yeah. He's like,
right?
This is the one.
Epimetheus is not at all like that. Epimetheus is the guy that never makes a mistake twice.
Yeah. So the way I always thought about it is Prometheus can look at a situation and see where it's going.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I know how this is going to turn out.
Yeah.
Whereas Epimetheus could look at a situation and know exactly how it got there.
Yeah.
He's like, no, I know what happened to get to right here.
Yeah.
You know, because Prometheus would be like, I don't know how we got here. And Epimetheus is like, I do. I can see it all on their faces. I don't know what's going to happen next. And Prometheus is like, let me tell you. It's
great that they're brothers.
It's going to be great.
That must be a great relationship they have.
Well, one of them gets punished and the other doesn't. So,
well,
unless you consider Pandora punishment.
Epimetheus never, like, went out and just gave humanity fire.
True. Well, depending on what you read, Prometheus gave it back. He didn't give it first. Man already had it. Zeus took it. Prometheus stole it and gave it back to them.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, go ahead. We're getting out of order.
So Prometheus, prior to stealing fire, is most notable for creating man.
Yeah.
That's who made mankind. And so despite being a Titan, and despite being this, sort of victimized figure in Greek mythology, he's always spoken of in a positive light by people.
Yeah.
Because he's Zeus is the father of the gods and men, but Prometheus is literally the crafter of mankind.
Yeah.
Which would explain why he would throw everything in Zeus's face for the benefit of man. Because they're like his literal children.
Yeah.
Whereas Zeus is like, these are my metaphorical children.
Yeah, the way Fry talked about it was Zeus got bored.
That sounds...
And he went...
if I had to personify Zeus to such a level, that's exactly what I would think he'd do. He'd be like, oh, I'm done.
He got bored, and he went to Prometheus. Like, he basically had an existential crisis. And was like, is this it? Is this all there is? Like, I have nothing else to do. I'm bored. And it's literally it. So he goes to his best friend Prometheus and is like, I have a problem.
And and Prometheus is like, I see where this is going to end up, so we need to fix that problem. It's just going to be another war. He's going to get bored, start finding new bad guys. So anyway, it starts with, and a lot of the verbiage that Hesiod uses in Theogony is to the degree that, like, even Zeus acknowledges Prometheus as the most clever person.
Yeah.
Now, Hesiod also makes a point to say that Zeus is all-knowing. Like, he regularly references Zeus as who knows all things.
So you know this is a fact, because Zeus knows this.
Right. And so that sort of brings a different perspective on the whole tricking Zeus and stealing fire, because it's like, well, he knew it. Mm-hmm. Did you really steal it? If he's like, no, Prometheus is going to come get it. And there he goes.
There he goes.
You didn't really steal it. Like, he let you take it. But that's not the point. There's some sort of conflict between gods and men. Mm-hmm. And this is when gods and men still ate together.
Sometimes.
I can't remember the name of the place, but it's significant geographically.
Somewhere in around Mount Olympus, right. I think.
Where they have come together and they're going to make this sort of attempt at a peace agreement to figure out whatever that conflict is. And Zeus invites Prometheus as the mediator. He's like, these are your creation, my worshippers. You're the perfect person to stand in the middle of this and help. And so the first thing Prometheus does is he's meant to divide up the food. So he has a bull, and he gets to decide who gets what parts. So he skins the bull, and he makes these 2 big baskets out of the skin. And he fills up one of them with all the good bits of meat, but then covers it with the stomach. And the stomach is like the last part of any animal you want to eat. It's not good. It's nasty. There's like whatever they just ate inside of it still.
I mean, people turn those into water skins.
Right. You don't eat them. Nah. You use them for other things. You know, even in haggis, you don't necessarily have to eat the stomach. You just eat what's in it.
It's usually the like inner lining of the stomach.
Right.
Or something, right?
Yeah. And then then the other one, he puts all like the bones and cartilage, but then covers it with like a layer of fat. So it looks real good. And then Zeus comes up and Prometheus is like, all right, here are the portions. And Zeus is like, well, you didn't divide those very fairly. And he said, but Zeus, you get to pick. Which one would you like? And so Zeus picks the one with the fat, because that's the one that looks good.
Yeah.
Now, in Hesiod's version, Zeus knows this is a trick, but he allows it to happen.
Uh-huh.
And so he goes, I'll take the one with the fat. And then sees that it's all bones. And then the men get all the stomach, but they also get all the good meat. And he's like, all right, well, if they're going to get all the meat, then they can eat it raw. And he takes fire away.
Okay.
And so that's the first trick of Prometheus, is that
interesting.
He fools the gods into taking the bones and the cartilage, mm-hmm. which is sort of an etiological myth as to why the Greeks burnt those parts in the offerings on the altar, as opposed to the good parts of the meat.
So in mythos, the reasoning came back to, if man has fire, like if you're giving them fire, you're literally giving them the power to transform things.
Yes.
They will one day brought up in this too, they will one day overthrow me.
Fire is this sort of divine element.
Yeah.
Where to be able to master it is to be able to do what the gods do.
Yeah.
I mean, and almost literally, like, that's what makes Hephaestus god of the forge, is he can manipulate fire to create these things.
Yeah.
And he's feared on Olympus for being so damn good at it. Mm-hmm. So it's like, we're going to give people that? I don't know, man. So Zeus takes it away.
Yeah.
And then Prometheus is like, well, that's not very fair. That was pretty shitty.
He allows it at first.
Well, yes. He doesn't immediately be like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You know, he's kind of like, he waits, and then he's like, well, this kind of sucks. We probably need that fire back.
Yeah.
And he steals fire in a stalk of giant fennel.
What is fennel?
It's a plant, sort of reed-like, that grows. Now, because for anyone not already familiar, I'm a plant science major and a landscape designer, so a bit of plant nerd knowledge for you.
Cool.
Giant fennel isn't a true fennel, but that's not relevant at all.
Noted.
What is relevant is that ancient Greeks did use it to carry embers from place to place, because it had a very woody pith, so you could like stick hot coals in it and it wouldn't burn through the sides. So you just cut you off a length, plug it at one end, stick a bunch of coals in there, top it off, and then carry it to the next city, open it up, coals are still burning, still hot.
Wow.
So they literally use it to carry fire.
That's cool.
So that's kind of an ideological myth that explains that. But
that makes sense, yeah. I like it.
Gives them fire back. Zeus is pissed. He's like,
Zeus is so pissed.
I didn't say you could do that. So Zeus chains him to a mountain or to a rock.
Yeah.
Drives a shaft through his torso.
Yeah.
And he's watched over by a crow. And then a giant eagle comes down and eats his liver every day.
Yeah. And
then flies away and his liver grows back every night.
Yeah.
And then it keeps coming back and it keeps coming back. And it was supposed to be like that forever. It doesn't end up being forever. That's not really the point.
But that's not really part of this story either.
No, that's Heracles / Hercules.
Hercules breaks him free later. But this happens now.
Right. But Zeus is like, well, that's not good enough. We've punished Prometheus for stealing fire. But now mankind has fire. Rather than take it back, we're just going to balance the scales. And we're going to give them something way worse.
Yeah.
Fire is really good.
Yeah.
Here's this really bad thing. And I wrote this story down.
Yeah.
I'm gonna read some stuff. This is what they say about old Pandora. So he immediately fashioned an evil for men to balance out the fire, that he being Zeus. Hephaestus made from earth the likeness of a modest young woman. Okay, sure. That doesn't seem so bad.
No.
Interesting that Prometheus is the creator of man and Hephaestus the creator of woman.
Well, Prometheus made the formula.
Right, but Hephaestus made it better.
Yeah,
we both agree that women look better than men.
Yeah.
And he is married to the most beautiful woman, so he had a decent template to start with.
He did. Arguably, they're modeled off of her in some influence.
Athena wrapped and adorned her in silvery cloth, an embroidered veil, a marvel to see, garland of flowers of fresh blooming grass. She had a golden band that the lame god himself had made. So Hephaestus even made her a little crown and worked into it many ingenious designs of wild animals of the kind that inhabit the sea and dry land. Of these wonderful things he placed many examples, like living things with voices.
What? Wait, what is he saying there?
So it's really just trying to draw like just how intricate and fine this thing was, but like it almost literally made noise. That's how realistic and lifelike those animals were that are like worked into the design. Whether or not they literally did, I can't tell if that's what the story's saying. Because I'm not good enough at reading classical poetry to know.
Fair enough.
What's literal and what's metaphorical. But it might have literally made the noise of the animals. Amazement filled the deathless gods and mortal men when they saw the bitter deception which men could not withstand. From her comes the race of tender women. So they all see her, and immediately they're like, oh, we're fucked.
Well,
because all the men see it and they go, this isn't good, but I definitely want one.
That is not at all how Fry tells it. The way Fry tells it, he's like, all right, we're going to make this amazing woman, the best woman. Mm-hmm. We're going to make the first and best woman, and then we're going to give her to Epimetheus as a wife.
Right. Well, they're going to do that.
Yeah.
Interesting that I thought he meant so he said from her comes the tender race of women who dwell among men as a great affliction for mortals.
Yeah.
Not bearing up well in poverty, but happy in plenty.
Well, so the way he phrases it, it's like it's a 2-part story, right? Or a 3-part story. The second act is Pandora. The third act is the box.
Yes. Well, and so Hesiod kind of does the same, where it's just 2 parts. Mm-hmm. This is just describing the creation and the consequence. The box comes next.
Yeah.
But then Hesiod just sort of goes on with his terrible thoughts about women in general.
Yeah.
Where he likens them to bees, but to the drone bees that don't do any work.
The drone bees do all the work.
And so he's saying, well, men are these worker bees that go out and gather all this nectar. They bring it back to the drones that stayed inside all damn day doing nothing, and they just eat all the stuff that the the worker bees bring in never contributing anything.
It's so funny to me.
Which is ignorant of women and of bees.
It's so funny to me how, like, the metaphor still works when you correct him, though.
Correct. He was right, but he didn't know why. We love that. But this was, I thought, was interesting. So you would think, why wouldn't you just not deal with women then, right? And any straight man knows why you do. But
right.
You'd think this is the story of women. You'd be like, why do we mess with them at all anyway?
Well, there's very good reason for that.
And he gave a second evil in return for the good. For whoever flees from marriage and the oppressive ways of women and wishes not to marry, then a wretched old age comes upon him and no one to care for him. So he says, you can not deal with women, but you'll die sad and alone. And those are your options. Deal with women or die sad and alone.
Such a misogynistic outlook.
And sad.
There's
no good choice through that lens.
No.
It's like, deal with this affliction among men or die sad and alone.
Yeah, don't ask your other man friends that have also just discovered women to take care of you.
Right.
Like, I mean, how were you taking care of each other before?
Exactly. Well, Hesiod seems to just totally disagree the problem of procreation prior to women, but I don't know that it matters. How were babies born before Pandora? Again, time gets weird.
Yeah.
And then he goes on to say, as if this is supposed to make you feel better, as for the man who chooses marriage as his lot and takes a pleasant wife suited to his mind, from the beginning evil goes with good. So you think, oh, well, women are pretty bad. Okay. But if I don't marry, very dismal future. Yeah. Okay. So I'll find a good woman that I agree with, and we'll get married, and that'll be great, right? And he goes, well, I mean, even from the beginning, you'll have some evil and some good. So there's just no purely positive outlook. Nope. And as sad as that sounds, I will say marriage is fucking hard.
I mean,
I wouldn't call it evil, but I would warn people against it. If you think you're going to get married and it's all going to be like staying at home, being best friends forever.
So I have one thing to say about this. Just one thing, because I could say like a boatload of things about this.
Yeah.
As a man that is also married, being married is a commitment you make every day. It's not a commitment you make once.
Right.
So that's, I think, what Hesiod is getting into is this idea that like, it's relationships take work, but he's got this awful spin on it.
Right. So I think reading through the lens of his time, thinking of what men of that time thought of women.
Sure.
The modern message we can take away from that is being married isn't easy. And there's going to be days where it does suck.
Yeah.
But the alternative is worse.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to die alone.
Yeah. So I think that's where I kind of drew where I was like, I don't agree with half the shit this man's saying. I will say, if we interpret it to mean this, I agree.
That is one interpretation you can take from it. There's lots of interpretations you can take from it. That's the interpretation I choose to take, which is like, no, I love my wife. And I'm happy to be with her. Is every day sunshine and roses? No.
Well, but it can't be. That would be so terrible.
I mean, that in itself would be a problem.
Right. The only way that happens is if both of you have no strong opinions about anything ever.
Oh, that would be so boring.
Wouldn't it? You just be like, what do you think? I don't know. Yeah, me neither.
I'm just going to scroll on my phone now.
Yeah, that's fine.
Also scroll on my phone now.
No, I don't feel like looking at my phone. Just disassociate. I don't know what you would do. I don't know what you would do. I mean, half, if not more than half of the interaction I have with Mary is discussing our difference of opinion on something. Because I'll be like, oh, a guy at work said this. She's like, what did he mean by that? And I'll be like, well, I think he meant this. She goes, that's not what I thought it meant. Like, what did you think it meant? Oh, I thought it meant this. That doesn't seem like the kind of guy he is. Like, and you would just talk back and forth about, like, this is what I think. Well, this is what I think. And this is how we differ. Because if you just agreed on everything, that would end the conversation. Like, if you're like, that was a good movie. And you're like, yeah, it was.
Yeah. Today my wife told me, I really want to go see, I don't remember what it's called, but basically she wants to go watch high school kids in band do something, like play music. And she said, it'll be really good. They're really good, honey. And I laughed and I was like, okay, sure. And that sounds great. And she's like, it's going to be outside. And I said, fantastic. That means there's no doors for them to lock. And she said, you're awful. You don't get to go to the football games with me. And I said, oh no, I don't get to go watch kids play sports. Damn.
Oh man. It's the differences that make the conversation
yes
fun. And if you're gonna have to talk to the same person every day for the rest of your life, it better be a fun damn conversation.
Yeah, I try.
At the very least.
Yeah, I try.
So there's the works and days version of the story, which doesn't preoccupy itself too much with the who's and whens and whys of stealing fire. It's really just about Pandora.
Yeah.
But again, it talks about the why. It references Prometheus as the noble son of Iapetos. So every time they bring up Prometheus, it's the generous son or the brave or the noble. Like, it's always this good thing. Like, Prometheus is very much a good... Well, that was Prometheus' father.
Oh, okay.
So that's just why they keep her mother.
What was he the Titan of?
I don't know.
Oh, fair. I'll look that up. You keep talking.
Yeah. But we get some quotes where after he had stolen the fire, Zeus again confirms him as the most clever.
Yeah.
He says, "O son of Iapetos, who surpasses all in cunning." So even Zeus is going, better than me. But then gets on to what he's going to do and says, "I will give them in retribution for fire and evil, which all will take delight in." Yeah, I'd say we're enjoying women. They look good. They smell good. They're nice. I don't know. I'm not seeing the evil. I'm just seeing the delighting in part. But that's just my opinion.
Sure. Yeah, agreed.
So he orders Hephaestus to make her out of earth and water. Gives her the voice and the strength of a human being. To make the lovely, desirable shape of a young girl with a face like the immortal goddesses. So again, big emphasis on how beautiful she is. Athena, instead of just giving her things, teaches her craft and how to weave. And Aphrodite gives her charm that inspires cruel desire. That's a quote. And care that devours the limbs.
Care that devours the limbs?
Yes. I haven't yet figured out what that means.
Care that
devours the limbs.
I don't know why, but that just makes me think of like a swaddled baby.
Well, and my first kind of reaction to it was the self-sacrificing nature of women.
Okay.
Is that they care about things so much that they will do things in detriment to themselves for the sake of that. The most obvious example being children, but also spouses, social causes. Like, I've seen women bend over backwards to make something happen, even though it's obviously terrible for them.
Yeah, sure. See, this is what I think is interesting, because, like, yes, you could attribute that to women. But this is, like, I think this is what bugs me about Hesiod's interpretation, is, like, anything, like, literally everything he attributes to women could just as easily be attributed to men. It's like, when you say that, like, yes, I see that, sure. And yes, culturally speaking, that is more often than not true of that about women.
Yes. It's helpful for me when reading these sort of stories to look at them from a psychological perspective, because then you're taking these characters, and instead of them being individuals that interact with one another, they are aspects of the self that are interacting with one another.
Yeah.
So to say that Pandora has care that devours the limbs isn't to say only women have that. But there is within you, Ryan, a man, a feminine aspect to care for something so much that you will sacrifice for it.
Yes, that's true. Okay. I like the way you're looking at that. That's a good way to resolve that.
It's to think that Pandora isn't a literal woman.
No.
Pandora is a psychological feminine aspect of ourselves.
Well, I mean, all these stories are metaphors.
Right. So, yeah, she's beautiful. She's got charm that inspires cruel desire, which is in and of itself a punishment. But this is where it gets funny. Hermes, the messenger, killer of Argos. We got to throw in that he killed a Titan. We got to remember how badass Hermes is, even though it's not relevant to the story. Put in her the mind of a bitch.
What?
And that's
per the translation. Quote?
Per the translation by Barry B. Powell.
Here, look at this.
Yes. The mind of a bitch and a scheming nature.
Are we talking about a dog?
I don't know.
Because... what the fuck?
I think what they're trying to say is that Hermes just made her really fucking mean.
What the fuck?
That's what I'm getting.
Hermes?
That's what I'm getting. Yeah, Zeus is like, no. Make her a bitch, dude.
What the fuck?
No. She looks great, and you're gonna want her. But just make her rude. I don't know. But we go into Athena gave her a girdle and ornaments. The goddess Graces and queenly persuasion placed on her skin golden necklaces. And the Hours with beautiful locks crowned her with spring flowers. Athena fitted her with ornaments. And in her breast, the messenger, the killer of Argos, again, we got to bring it up, fashioned lies and wheeling words and a thievish nature. Just to remember, in case we get mad at Hermes. Yeah. Just to remember, in case we get mad at Hermes, through the will of loud thundering Zeus. Right? He's just doing what he's told. It's not Hermes' fault.
So through Zeus, women tell lies.
Through the will of Zeus.
Through the will of Zeus.
Through Hermes, the messenger of the gods. Women fashion lies and wheeling words. I'll tell you what, I've got in arguments with Mary. That wheeling word shit rings true to me. Okay? Sometimes she just says things. I'm like, I don't even know what you're saying to me anymore. I'm so confused. It's something with the way she's able to articulate how she feels seems so over my head that I don't understand what she's saying.
Oh,
I'm just
totally get what you mean. Yeah.
I don't know what your complaint is. I can't tell what's wrong.
I know that you're upset.
And I know you're telling me why.
I know this is upsetting you. And you're telling me why this is upsetting you.
And I'm just not getting it.
Yes, I have had that argument with my wife before.
That to me is the wheeling words.
Okay.
I'm just like, because it just goes round and round and round. And I'm like, honey, I'm trying. I really am. It doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
Oh, man. Anyway, and name her Pandora because all who live on Olympus had given her a gift. Pandora means all gifted. An evil for men who devour grain. I guess it means if you're gluten-free, you're free. No need to worry. But gave her two, again, sent the famous killer of Argus, the swift messenger of the gods. Why do we got to keep bringing that up?
The titles are important.
The title's important. Zeus does, in case anyone
maybe there was
cares,
a war on
Zeus does always have a title.
Yeah.
He's loud thundering, cloud gathering Zeus. Zeus who knows all things. It's always something there.
Yeah.
This one just says Olympian Zeus. That might be the least flattering one.
I have a question about ancient Greek culture. Was it normal to name people after gods?
I don't think so.
Okay, because if it was, it would explain the distinction.
Yeah.
Like there's a difference between Jesus Christ, Lord and Savior, and
Jesus.
Yes.
Which, I mean, as far as I understand, Hispanic culture is the only name I know that uses Jesus still.
Agreed.
I don't know of any. I've never met a white guy named Jesus.
Same.
Yeah.
Except in fiction.
Yeah.
Walking Dead. There is a guy named Jesus.
There you go.
Yeah.
But anyway, so then he sends Hermes to take it to Epimetheus as a gift. And Epimetheus did not remember how Prometheus had told him to never accept a gift from Olympian Zeus, but to send it back unless some evil befall mankind. But only after he had taken it, there's that hindsight, did he understand. Before this, men lived separate apart from evil, and apart from harsh labor and grievous sickness, which brings death upon men. For in misery men soon grow old. But the woman took off the great lid of the jar with her hands and scattered its contents abroad, and she devised terrible pains for humankind. Hope alone remained within the unbreakable house between the lip of the jar, or beneath the lip of the jar, and did not fly out the door.
So, in Hesiod's version,
she was not an unwilling participant.
She did this on purpose.
To be fair, she was given the mind of a bitch, a thievish nature. She's not, in this portrayal, a kind and generous woman.
Yeah. In the portrayal that I listened to in Mythos.
In most portrayals, she is, and is an unfortunate pawn in Zeus's plan.
Yeah, but Hesiod is just like a real misogynist.
And I think part of it is necessitated by his view of women as expressed prior. Because if you're like, yeah, these women, they're evil, man. They're the reason everything fucking sucks. And then you're like, but she was nice. She was sweet. She really helped out Epimetheus. Like, she was, he went out into the farm, field all day, and she's like keeping the house tidy, taking care of the kids, making sure it's fine. There's just a disconnect where you're like, hang on.
It's that real double think.
Where's the evil? I thought it was evil. But if you're like, no, look. She's a bitch, and she lies. And she was given this jar full of nasty shit. And as soon as she got to her husband, she was like, yeah, fuck you people. And started shuffling it all. Like, then you're like, oh, okay, yeah. They're evil. So I think it's necessary to portray her that way.
So in Mythos, it was basically put as she was just so freaking curious.
Yes.
She was given this box.
And told, don't open that.
Don't fucking open the box. She was like, okay, fine. Put it under her bed. And she didn't think about it for a long time. And then one of the gods visited her and asked her about the box.
And then she's like, oh, fuck.
And she
gets the box.
She, like, in the middle of the night, took it into the backyard and opened it.
Yeah.
And just all of the awful, terrible, like, famine and
war and hunger and all that
and
stuff.
Monsters.
It all came out. Diseases.
And then, the saddest thing, she shuts it before hope can come out.
Yeah.
Because hope has to be invited out.
Right. It doesn't come out.
But she was just so terrified about all this awful shit coming out of it, she shut it.
Yeah.
And she never opened it again.
Now, I will say, whether it was intentional or not, Hesiod makes a pretty solid argument for women in this example.
With hope?
Yes.
Okay.
Hope is intentionally left in the jar, which means hope can only be found with Pandora.
I like that.
So, whether he meant to or not, the message this sends is, women hold hope.
Yeah.
And that's the only place to find it.
Yeah.
That's a pretty solid argument for women.
Yeah, I like that.
All this other shit he set aside, he has left with, like, the one good thing does come from women.
The one good nugget.
Everything else sucks. And most of women do too. But they got that one little part that's good.
It's like, hey, you want a woman when you die, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that was the argument.
Yeah, well, and they have hope. You want hope, right?
Oh, God.
Only women have that.
Yeah.
Which makes us men seem kind of sad. We don't have hope. Only if we have women do men have hope.
Wait, hold on. What sources did you... Is this like the original source, Hesiod?
It's one of, yeah.
What other sources talk about Pandora?
I would have to look. I mean, the story's been retold
so many times.
Over and over. It's hard to be like, this is one of the oldest, if not the oldest, reference to the story. So you could read that as this is sort of the quote legitimate story, and then in later attempts they tried to be like more sympathetic towards the portrayal of women because they realized that's pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
Or maybe more people just believed that to be the actual story, and Hesiod put his own agenda into writing this one.
I think the way to look at it is like a lot of these stories are really the same story told a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Right? And so I imagine what happened is that eventually the stories were told enough times that one version overpowered another.
Right.
Because, I mean, I don't know about you, like, I much preferred the Mythos version over that. that was kind of upsetting to listen to a little bit.
Yeah, well, for anyone who likes women, you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Wait a minute, dude. My mother is not like that. You know, like if you don't have a wife, if you don't have a girlfriend, you know, if you're a gay man that has zero interest in interacting with women ever, you have a mother, and your mother's probably not like that. And you're just like, why are you being so mean? For no fucking reason. It just seems so rude. But then we get into like the more interesting, to me at least, psychological aspects of the story. And then you start trying to kind of piece together like, what do these things mean for us psychologically? Like, what does it mean that Prometheus, foresight or forethought, is the creation of man?
The universe expressing itself?
The way I thought of it was that the ability to have foresight or forethought is a function of consciousness. And before consciousness, there wasn't man, because man didn't know they were.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I would think the birth of man comes from the ability to recognize oneself as such.
Oh, right, sure. I think, therefore I am.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then we get to, well, I can see the future, which means I can see me and how I'm different from him. Because we're going to have different futures.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, Chris. We are different. Not too different.
I'm single.
That's true.
Yeah.
I didn't know what you were talking about this marriage thing.
It's the best mistake I ever made.
I wasn't looking at you.
No,
I wasn't looking at you, but I now I'm really curious what expressions was on his face when we were talking about marriage.
He was like, thank God. Anyone who's not married that's listening to this, marriage is awesome.
Yeah.
It's so fucking good.
Sure.
It's the best shit. It's so good.
It's good when you're not poor.
Yeah. I'd say it's even better when you are, because then at least you have something.
No, I guess that's true. No.
Could you imagine being poor and not married?
I mean, my wife is
super sad.
My wife is really doing everything she can to keep us alive right now, so that's pretty great.
Mine is too. She's the breadwinner.
Mm-hmm.
Not by too much. She just makes, I don't know, 50% more than me. But
oh no, I make more than my wife, but
I don't.
Like, we're at the point we're at now. I pay all the bills, and she gets us food.
Oh, the point we're at now, I pay all the bills and she gets everything else.
That's great.
She fills up the gas in the cars. She gets the food. She wants to go out. Bring your debit card, honey. Not coming out of my account. I don't have the funds for that.
I paid all the bills.
Just enough to pay all the bills. Put a little bit in savings. All the fun money is in that account.
So that was that it? Was that everything we wanted to talk about?
No.
Oh.
No.
But I don't think we got time now.
No, we don't. We don't.
What time are we at?
1 hour and 34 minutes.
Okay,
that's not too bad.
Well, I mean, it's 10 minutes over what I'd like, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Probably cut a little bit out.
Yeah. So we got through the wedding, and we got through Prometheus and Pandora.
Yeah. Did not get to Pegasus.
No, we didn't get to the Minotaur either.
When you said you wanted to do an episode for each, like, I get why, because there's just so much to cover.
Yeah.
Because, like, we could just do Greek myths.
Oh, yeah. We could, a whole series.
But that's not, no, we need.
I think that's just a disservice to how many great stories there are in myths from other places. And the lessons that can be learned from the differences in perspective.
Yeah. Because this is a mirror about ancient Greek culture.
Right. Well, and if you look at mythology as the unconscious expressing itself in a religious way, or in a mythological way, you don't even have to believe it religiously, then that is going to express itself differently in different cultures, because different cultures will value certain things differently. But that doesn't make any one interpretation less valuable to you as an individual.
Yeah.
So like, we have Zeus, the god of thunder and the sky and the king of the gods, who just made himself the king of the gods because he overthrew Kronos. And then in Hindu mythology, you have Indra, who is a god of thunder and storm. Bless you.
It's all right.
And he's elected as the king of the gods.
He was elected?
Yeah. He was chosen by the other gods to be the king of the gods.
Wow.
And so, like, those are two very similar characters, and yet very different characters.
I wonder if Zeus would have been elected.
I think through intimidation. He would have coerced votes.
The way...
Like, he'd come up and be like, hey, vote for me, and, like, shake your hand, and then just crush it. And he goes, no, really.
Yeah, no, the way I understood it, it was him and Poseidon and Hades. They were all the most powerful.
Yes. Because they're all sons of Kronos.
Right. Wasn't there another son, though? Or were they the only 3 sons?
I think Hera was the daughter, so there were 4 children. Or 5 children total.
I thought there were 7 children.
Maybe there were.
Shit.
I had to
Wait,
check.
well, Demeter, Hestia.
That's true. They're children of Gaia, but I don't know if they're children of Kronos. I might have that backwards, though.
Gaia was before the Titans.
Well, Gaia was Zeus's mother.
Gaia is Zeus's grandmother.
Okay. I thought Gaia and Kronos were.
So there
Greek, it's confusing.
So before everything, there was chaos.
Right.
Chaos expunges everything else. 2 of the things that chaos expunged was Ouranos and Gaia.
Yeah, that's right.
They birthed the Kronos. Titans as well as the 100-handed ones and giants.
Yeah.
And then I believe Kronos was with Rhea. What's her name?
Right. That sounds right. Yep. Yeah. Yep. You're right. Okay. But yeah, I mean, I can spark note the rest of the story. Prometheus just kind of.
I think we should leave it.
Leave it as?
No. I was gonna leave it off with talking about what our sources were for people to look into if they'd like to continue their mythological journey into Greek myths.
Yeah. So my 2 sources were the poems of Hesiod, Theogony, Works and Days, and the Shield of Heracles. A new translation by Barry B. Powell. Very interesting, very easy to read. They do have some very helpful family trees through Theogony. So, like, we can see, like Gaia and Tartaros made Typhon that made Sky Mountain and Sky Mountain and Sea. So, like, yeah. So Gaia actually birthed Ouranos, according to this poem.
Oh, maybe I had it wrong.
I don't know. But the family trees help when trying to keep track of who's who and why and whatever.
Yeah.
It gets complicated.
Yeah. So what else did you have?
And then technically Latin, not Greek. Sorry guys. It's Ovid Metamorphoses, the Penguin Classics version. Also very good, very dense. It is a collection of how many books? 15 books by Ovid of Metamorphoses, and it just covers different Greek stories that focus on transformation. And that was my source for Theseus and the Minotaur and Icarus and Daedalus story, which we didn't get to, unfortunately. It's really good.
Yeah.
Super good.
Maybe
a lot of psychological insight in that one.
Maybe we'll do a part 2 sometime.
Maybe. We'll get to it.
So my sources was all by Stephen Fry. He published a trilogy about the Greek myths. Book 1 is Mythos. That's all about, like, creation and the gods and stuff the gods did early on. And then book 2 is Heroes, which is about all of the big heroes, Perseus, Hercules, Jason, Orpheus, etc. Also Bellerophon, who I never knew about until I read this. Bellerophon he was a son of Poseidon, and he tamed Pegasus. That's the short version. And then book 3 is Troy. So book 2 talks about a bunch of heroes, but it doesn't talk about, like, you know, the most well-known heroes outside of, like, Hercules.
Yeah.
Because, like, I feel like when people know things about Greek myths, it's really they know stuff about Troy.
Yeah. Well, and so much because of the Iliad and the Odyssey, like, so much of that relates back to what happened to Troy.
Mm-hmm. Because Troy was an actual event in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
There was a lot of mythological stuff attributed to it after the fact.
Yeah. Well, and for a long time, they were like, I don't know if the Trojan War even happened. But they've even found that there's like there's a close genetic relationship between people in the part of the world where Troy is supposed to have been and Italians.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So there's also some scientific data that supports at some point there was an immigration, at least from that area to the Italian peninsula. So
nice.
But yeah, those were the sources. Feel free to branch out, because we didn't want to get super into the weeds on long form poetry, which, like, obviously some of this stuff was, but we weren't going to do the Iliad and the Odyssey because it would just take so long to read.
You want something great for kids? Give them Percy Jackson.
There you go. Percy Jackson. Great for, what do they call it? Are those technically YA novels? Young adult?
They absolutely are. I mean, in the first, it was straight up a kid's book at first. Like, the first book, Percy's 12.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, the first Harry Potter book he's 11, but you got 30-year-olds that'll reread those all the time. They're like, I love it. There's almost a cult around Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Some people are like, I don't want my book published YA. I'm like, no, Harry Potter's YA, and it's massively successful. That's exactly where you want to publish it.
YA is a genre that it's very nebulous.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it could mean a lot of different things.
Yeah. Okay. I think
I've been reading Seventh Hour. That's YA. It's actually not bad.
It's good, dude.
I know.
They're short books. It's an easy read. It's just so good.
Yeah.
Anyway, Seventh Tower by Garth Nix. Great series. Fantastic.
Nothing to do with what we were talking about, but
nope, nothing at all.
That's
other
another
than
recommendation.
It is on my list. It's by no means considered a classic or in any way influential per se of any, like, tabletop role-playing game or, like, big hit fantasy series. I just really like them. I read the first book when I was like 10, maybe 11. I was just like, yo, I need the rest of these today, Grandma. And she got them because she's a fantastic woman. But,
what are we talking about next time?
Next time, if we get through all of them next time, what we will talk about is Norse mythology.
Cool.
3 stories that I had picked out is how Odin loses his eye.
Cool.
So Odin is always depicted as one-eyed, and in the MCU, he loses his eye fighting giants. That is not how he loses it.
Marvel Norse mythology and actual Norse mythology are 2 completely different things.
Very different. They do make, I think, some very fun nods to actual Norse mythology.
They do. I mean, there's
like little
off
hints
of it.
that you're like, haha, that's funny. But it's in no way supposed to be representative.
Yeah.
So how Odin loses his eye. The death of Balder.
That's Odin's brother, right?
No, it's a son.
Oh, shit.
Maybe not one of Odin's sons, one of Freya's or Frigg's sons. But he was like the favorite, most well-loved god in the world.
Sure.
Like, everybody thought he was just the greatest.
Just Balder. He's the bee's knees, man.
Balder, he's amazing. And so that story is very significant in that it is the first step of Ragnarok. Ragnarok starts with Baldur's death.
That makes sense.
Everything else is just downhill from there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then Thor's wedding.
Thor's wedding. Thor got married?
Thor is married. And has to attend a wedding. His wedding.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll talk about it.
Well, like how Zeus is married and has to attend his wedding?
No. No, it's not like that. It's very different.
Very different.
It's very
okay.
different. It's
okay.
very different.
Okay.
Let's just Thor didn't want to be there.
Got it.
But out of necessity, found himself there.
We'll get into it.
Yeah, we'll get it.
All right.
It's good stuff. And so I'm going to go ahead and just tell you what my sources are now, because
sure,
there's only two. It will be the Everyman Library's edition of the Prose Edda. It's just called Edda. Their publication is anyway, but the Prose Edda, which was penned by Snorri Sturluson. I'm sure I messed up the pronunciation of that. But he was, would be now a very old man. He was an ancient priest. I believe he was actually a Catholic priest.
Was he ancient when he wrote that?
No, I'm sure he was pretty old, but he was a convert to Catholicism from Scandinavia that made a point to write down a lot of the Scandinavian beliefs. Now, some people think it's a little Christianized. So, to complement the Prose Edda, I also have the Poetic Edda. Translated by Carolyn Larrington. This is the Oxford World Classics edition. A lot of what is in the Prose Edda is the prose version of what is in the Poetic Edda.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah.
Because it was all poems before.
Yes, it was all epics and poems.
And so once you convert it to prose, something is a bit lost in translation.
Right. This is more just like a narrative of what happened, whereas this is like the actual tradition that they would sing. But it's considered in some circles a more reliable source because it is kept as close to the original as it could be. It's by various authors, some of which are unknown, and was a big part of the source material for Snorri's Prose Edda. So I'm going to read both just so I get both versions in case there is any sort of Christianizing that happened. Try to get both perspectives.
I got nothing.
I brought two recommendations for you.
Okay.
Neil Gaiman does have a very well-received book called Norse Mythology.
Oh, yeah, he does. I never got around to that one.
Yeah, I've never read it. However, the reviews are fantastic. It's a wonderfully selling book.
I'm pretty sure he narrates it himself.
And I haven't heard any sort of like crazy outspoken backlash for inaccuracies or anything like that. And usually the internet's pretty fast about being like, boo, you suck, and letting you know if it's bad or not. So the fact that I haven't heard it and it's been out a while leads me to believe it's a fairly decent representation. Although I do believe it's a lot more like Stephen Fry's Greek tales in that they're sort of a modernized narration.
Yeah.
More written in a novelization.
Yeah, the fun thing about Fry's narration is just he uses all of the UK accents for his characters.
Love it.
Just all of them. It's pretty great. And
I really want Zeus to be Cockney because then it'd be really hard to take him seriously. It's very difficult to sound imposing like that.
But yes.
Zeus, played by Jason Statham.
That's right.
Norse Mythology. It's a 6-hour audiobook. I can knock that out like on Thursday.
In a day right there.
Yeah, that's less than a work day.
Or if it's easier to find, or
I already just borrowed it.
If you have time for another,
I probably do.
Since
that's just 6 hours.
We got about a month.
Yeah.
Before we do the next one. There's also Norse Myth, Tales of Odin, Thor, and Loki by Kevin Crossley Holland.
Hold on, Audible. This shit's gonna get cut. We're gonna do an outro here in a second.
Yeah, you're fine.
We have to leave that part in.
Why do we have to cut
Now we have to leave the part where it says this shit's getting cut. Just for the irony. I want them to hear like this shit's getting cut, and then it cuts to the outro.
Yeah.
And then we're like, whoa, what got cut?
What got cut?
What'd they say? They were talking shit on women again, weren't they?
I don't know.
Those sons of bitches.
See you next time.